morning. This is a brief video about the importance of context and the nature of context and how we make meaning from it. This is going to precede your readings in the second module with regards to context. So this morning, it's cool. It's a nice August early, well, not so early morning, about 10 o'clock. But it is delightfully cool on my deck in the backyard. You can see our backyard behind me. You have to forgive my raspy voice and I've come down with a cold thanks to some of my friends and colleagues in Florida. But anyway, I'll struggle through that and just sound a little bit raspy if you'll forgive me for that. I want to begin a conversation about context because it is such a complex topic. And I mentioned that this is my house, this is my home, and this is my physical context, but there's so much more to context than just the physical arrangement of the house and where I live. In your readings, you're gonna cover two major theories, and there are many more. I could have really kept you busy on context for a long time. But the first one, I don't remember exactly the order I put them in, but I believe the first one is Bronfenbrenner's bioecological model of child development. Now, why are we studying a child development thing? Well, the reason is that it is about development of your worldview over time, and that worldview you bring to a learning situation. So that's one of the reasons we really want to focus on that is that when you come to a learning situation, your students, your people at church, other people in the world come to any kind of situation where they're learning based on their worldview. And so Bronfenbrenner talks about how that worldview got developed. And so that is a really important part of it. He talks about I believe it's the microsystems where we as children just out of the cradle are impacted by parental decisions and parental rules and all of the other kinds of things that we use to grow and nurture children. And as you continue to grow and as you mature, you encounter other kinds of stages of development. Now, I'm not a big one on stage theories. I might have mentioned that before, but this one really has a nice way of saying how we developed who we are and the person that we bring to our environment. And to me, that's one of the most important ways of thinking about context. Of course, it's a physical environment, but it's also the mental framework that we bring to the learning thing. And it's also about attitudes and values and other kinds of things that we've picked up as we have grown into the adults that we are. The other view of context that we've chosen for the class is Jean Lave's work on situated learning theories. And as a educational ethnographer, she looks at how people learn in the real world. And for her, the context, and for me, the context is the most important part of it is how real it is. And of course, that's one of the reasons I do these videos out in the real world. But she looks at context as having two elements. One is an arena, and of course the arena is my house, and the physical aspects of it, and the air conditioning, and all of the other kinds of things like the yard and the backyard, and we have a little fountain over here just off camera, and several kinds of physical things like that. But the other piece that is going on is my setting. She has arenas, which metaphorically we could call the house, and the settings, which are my mental frameworks and my attitudes and experiences that I bring to the engagement with my house. Now, you do the same thing, I'm quite sure. I have a deep emotional attachment to home. To me, home is very important. I'm kind of a neat freak, and so I react when things aren't as neat as they could be. But that's all part of my mental framework. I don't know where that neat thing came from, but but it is there, and it's part of my attitude about what quality of living at home. So Lave has this arena, which is the Barger piece, and those settings that we bring with us. Now, this is an important part of looking at intersection between teaching and the context. And we know that context is really critical to learning. So the thing that we know that is that when people are learning things, they learn them in light of their own attitudes and values and things that they're bringing to their settings. So you begin to see how complex this is, and it's not just a matter of saying, oh, we're outdoors and it's nice and it's cool, but there's so much more to context and things that you need to factor in when you're teaching. A little bit later in the semester, we're going to, and maybe not so much later, we're going to talk about constructivist teaching. We're going to talk about constructivism from a dialectical perspective, and of course dialectical means a conversation. And the way that I think about that is that we're having these conversations. Another word for it is social constructivism. In social settings, we are negotiating our frameworks between the teacher and the student, and coming to a common understanding of a learning piece based on our own frameworks. And so it's kind of a dance, a little bit like a negotiation about my framework says this, and the student says, well, my framework is, so we have this dialect, or we have this conversation back and forth, and we come to a negotiated understanding. So context is really important. It's important to transfer. We know that people tend to use the information that they learn in a similar context. And once we begin to expect transfer beyond a similar context, it gets a little dicey and not very predictable. So you can see that how it's really an important part of it, and also reflection gets in there too, because then reflection becomes part of that negotiation between I understand it this way and you understand it this way. Let's see where we can come together. So anyway, that's our upcoming module on context. And also look forward to a bulletin board discussion on the context. It's really important, but we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on that because we've got so much more to cover as we go along. So anyway, forgive the cars, at least we didn't have an airplane flying over. Get into that material, and we'll talk again soon.